So he's going to say that the earthly elements that are taken up into a work of art become conspicuous, whereas in a tool or an equipment, the equipment uses up the earthly matter and it disappears, it withdraws into its usefulness, whereas in a work of art, the earthly elements become conspicuous because they shine forth. The colors shine forth and become radiant. The stone contrasts the stone that the man who makes the axe takes up and it disappears into its usefulness, versus the stone that is taken up in a work of sculpture, it becomes radiant. It has a mystery about it, an energy that is fresh and new. Every work of art, Heidegger is going to say, is a kind of first time that this matter appears in this earthly matter appears in this manner. So he's going to say that each work of art is made up of this earth, and that earth is basically a self-secluding mystery, as he puts it. Now, what he means by this is that earth is taken up into a work of art, and it's transfigured, as it were, almost transubstantiated into something radiant and mysterious that cannot be penetrated by the human intellect fully. There's always a realm of ambiguity in works of art, a realm of mystery, of self-secluding and concealing mystery that this earthly, the matter that has been taken up into the work of art represents. But the thing about a work of art is that it is also simultaneously an opening to a world. The artist creates a world out of this earthly matter, and the world opens up a window, as it were, into being. And the being of a culture is not something that can ever be made visible except in a work of art, or a philosopher like Heidegger who can think about it, obviously. But the work of art opens up a cosmos, a world in which the earth that it takes up is transfigured and made radiant. It's a mystery. So all works of art, he's going to say, are based on this contestation between these two principles of world and earth. World is the aspect of the work of art that has to do with intelligibility. The worldly aspect of a work of art, the cosmos that the artist creates, it palpates, as it were, the contours of being and makes being intelligible. Being is what makes anything in a culture intelligible, but the artist brings that background subliminal awareness of being into what he calls the open region. The open region, remember, is this realm whereby objects are in dialogue with questioners. Inquirers who put questions to the objects create this open region, this clearing, this Lichtung, into which the objects that are cleared are brought out of concealment into unconcealment. This is the theory of truth as aletheia. Objects come out of concealment into unconcealment. A similar process is going on in a work of art as a truth event. Things are being brought forth out of concealment, the gods, for instance, into the unconcealment of the open region where they become manifest, and they're made aware, they stand out, people discourse on them, they're aware of this world that the artist has brought forth. They're aware now, the people in the culture are aware now of what it is that they've been thinking all along, of what it is that being means to them, what it is to be intelligible within this world that the artist has created, what it is to be intelligible as such. And so this opposition between world and earth, world is the realm of meaning, of making being manifest, and earth is what resists that meaning. Earth, there's a basic mysterious secluding aspect about earth that resists this intelligibility of world. And so the thing about earth, he says, is what's mysterious about it is, let's say you pick up a stone. I pick up a stone and I feel the weight of it in my hand. It's got a certain kind of pressure to it. There's no way I can explain that or make it explicable what that weight and pressure is in my hand. And even if I break up the stone into smaller pieces, the basic mystery of the stoneness there still remains. And as a result, the earth withdraws from me. It eludes my ability to ever fully, rationally comprehend what it is. There's always an aspect of things, of matter, of material things, that escapes systems of meaning. And so earth is always, it is that which evades capture by systems of meaning. In other words, by world. So there's this aspect whereby the earth is always trying to elude our ability to ever fully translate it and download it into comprehensible rationality. He says the way science would approach this, on the other hand, though, this stone, is that, or let's say science, let's take colors. Science translates colors into wavelengths, electromagnetic spectrum and wavelengths, and in doing that destroys it as color. It's no longer a mystery, and it no longer is even color. It's been destroyed, put through the ringer of science. And so what science does is it takes matter and it wants to know what the mysteries are and wants to make them rational and comprehensible. But Earth resists this. Earth, especially as it appears in works of art, resists this mode of rationality and comprehensibility and withdraws, and therefore it's self-secluding. It pulls back and away. It's almost like he's saying that matter traps mystery inside of it in a way that's kind of analogous to the way that the alchemists used to say that matter traps spirit, and that spirit is trapped in matter, and the alchemist in his laboratory is trying to figure out ways of letting it out. So in that sense, he's doing something completely different from what the scientist is doing when he gets into a laboratory and cuts matter up in order to torture all of its secrets out of it. The alchemist was trying to make a revelation happen, and so too the artist in a work of art is trying to make a revelation happen as well. But that matter that resists meaning and self-secludes and withdraws resists the realm of world, which makes something comprehensible and intelligible. So works of art have this basic ambiguity built into them. And this is very similar to his theory of truth. Remember that the theory of truth as aletheia is that in the process when we put questions to entities, entities come forth out of concealment, but as they unconceal themselves, certain facets of them withdraw back into concealment, so that no truth system can ever be error-free or complete, because in the very process of putting questions to nature, certain facets of it come out of the darkness and become manifest, while at the same time, and as part of the same process, aspects of it withdraw back into the darkness. Same thing with works of art, only now the process is world versus earth. World is what comes into intelligibility, and the earthly aspects of the matter that's been taken up and transubstantiated and turned into a world, a cosmos, resists that, resists all you know. So there's this basic sort of Germanic recognition of the ambiguity. We can never know everything. In the Germanic tradition that Heidegger's coming out here, there's this respect for basic elements of mystery and ambiguity that are built into the structure of the world. And Heidegger has this thing where he says, when he talks about the clearing, he says, imagine entities, beings sort of arranged all together, and they're surrounded by a clearing, an open space, and they come forth, when they come forth into this clearing, this is the truth process, when they come forth into this clearing, they always do so in a broken, blurred, incomplete way. We never quite clearly get a 100% clear vision of what they are, because error is built into the truth process, just as ambiguity is built into works of art, proper works of art, great works of art, which he says is all he's concerned with here in this essay. So works of art then bring you get this basic tension between world and earth, and works of art bring the elements of earth into the open region and set them forth. So with regard to the aspect of world, a world is set up by the artist, it's erected, set up, and earth is set forth. It's set forth into this. And so he says that earth always juts forth out of world, world rests on earth, but earth always pokes out of it. And the opposition between world and earth in this essay somewhat reminds me, on the one hand, it reminds me of Gebser's analysis in Ever-Present Origin of when he talks about the etymology associated with the word myth. He says that the word myth is etymologically related to the same word mouth, which means a speaking, an utterance, and hence intelligibility, but it's also related to its opposite, the word mute, which means not speaking, a silence. So there's this basic ambivalence, ambiguity built into the word myth. Likewise with world and earth, world is that aspect that corresponds to the mouth, speaking and intelligibility, and earth corresponds to that mute mystery, that silence that's built into every work of art that you can never fully iron out. In great works of art. We're not talking about simple works of art, like movies that you watch one time and you've comprehended everything you need to know and you never need to see it again. A great work of art in the sense that Heidegger's talking about might be something like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where no matter how many times you see it, you always see new facets because there's so much ambiguity built into the work, that the cosmos, the world it creates, is constantly filled with these evasions of any kind of complete thought system that you try to overlay onto it and pull all the meaning out. You can't. It's a great work of art. There's ambiguity built into it. And so it resists every attempt to completely create something that's a finalistic interpretation. I think that's what he's saying here. He doesn't say that in the essay, but I think that's the implication of what he's saying. And World and Earth, this is a text, that also comes out of the same tradition that Nietzsche was writing Birth of Tragedy in, and before him Lessing writing Laocoon. There's a certain comparison maybe between Apollo and Dionysus here. World is the Apollonian realm of reason and intelligibility, and Dionysus is the dark, obscure, chthonic world that's secluding and dark and hidden. There is a relationship there. I think there's an ancestry from Nietzsche into Heidegger here with this world and earth idea. So that is the main aspect of the essay, and once you've understood that central constitutive dichotomy and what the references are between world and earth, I think you've got the essay. It took me some doing to figure that out, though. One footnote I want to throw in is Ken Wilber has in his book The Eye of Spirit, has an amusing refutation of this essay where he talks about, he describes Heidegger's idea of seeing a world, and he describes the passage in the Van Gogh painting where Heidegger extrapolates from that the peasant going out into the world, in the world of the farming rural landscape that he builds from out of that. And Wilber says, no, the problem with this is none of that is in the painting. When we look at Van Gogh's notes, Wilber says, when we look at Van Gogh's notes or Gauguin's letters, where Gauguin recounts his friendship with Van Gogh and says that the shoes that were painted in that painting were actually Van Gogh's shoes, not some peasant's shoes, and that they were the shoes that Van Gogh wore when he was nursing someone back to health who had been wounded. I forget what the circumstances were, but it was somebody who had been severely wounded, and Van Gogh nursed him back to health in those shoes, and had a vision of Christ with the crown of thorns. And then when he went to paint the shoes, then there's all this transpersonal religious imagery associated with it. And so that's Wilber's refutation of Heidegger as projecting something in the painting that isn't there and not taking into account the real circumstances of its origin. Well, the funny thing is, if you go and you read the original version of this essay, The Origin of the Work of Art, there's another version of it that's shorter and easier to read. The second paragraph of that actually refutes Wilber, long before Wilber had come along, where he says that the artist's personal circumstances have nothing to do with the greatness of a work of art, because the artist's personal circumstances are trivial, and the neuroses of a personal artist cannot explain the greatness of a work of art or what's going on in a work of art. The artist is simply a passage, a conduit to a process of something that's greater than him. So to try to explain a work of art in terms of the artist's personal idiosyncrasies is ludicrous. And Wilber, we should also note, in saying that Heidegger is projecting a world of this peasant world into the painting that doesn't actually exist in the painting, is interesting, because apparently Wilber forgets that the pair of shoes that Van Gogh was wearing could also have been just as equally worn by a peasant. I mean, if it's the same type of shoes that a peasant wears, I don't see how this invalidates Heidegger's reading at all. And not only that, but Heidegger selects the painting to illustrate the idea to begin with that the artist creates a world, and he wants to see how equipment, when it's put into a painting, is transfigured, and how the being of that equipment is revealed. And so he just selects that painting as an illustration of what happens in this tension between world and earth. And it's funny, because I don't think Wilber's criticism has anything to do with the painting whatsoever. So anyhow, I think that brings us to where I wanted to go just with this essay. It's a long essay. It's like a miniature book, but it's definitely worth reading. And I think we can see how Heidegger sees the artist with his sensitivity to the contours of being. The artist names being. He names the gods, and he founds being. Basically, being, the origin of the work of art is art, in that art calls forth particular works of art out of the necessity of being's dialogue with a people. The artist stands midway between the gods and his people, and he is the central linchpin in being, dialoguing with being.